Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. We didn't plan to take a lot of time off, Ray. It kind of worked out that way. A lot of things going on. We know that this is a family first podcast, which plays into things. And just, it's into the school year. There's a lot of moving parts. So welcome back to everybody. And congratulations, Las Vegas Golden Knights, on your first Stanley Cup. Congratulations. I'm genuinely happy for those guys. That's how you grow the league, right? New cup winners, new teams, making it far and pushing the envelope. I think that's great.
And as predicted, they did it in 6 years. So that's exactly what they said was going to happen. It is absolutely crazy. So, and they put the boots to the Panthers, which made me feel good.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
The only thing that I wish someone would have done would have been as petty as I am and screamed in Radko Gudas's face on the celebration of winning the Stanley Cup. But, that's another story altogether. Yes, congratulations to Vegas. The Golden Knights are the champs. And jump in there, Brad. I mean, first off, with the draft, no downtime from Vegas winning the Cup to jumping right into the forthcoming season. Everyone was talking about the draft. They were talking about the free agent frenzy that was going to take place on Canada Day, which is apropos. We do love our hockey. Brad, we're going to start at the draft. Bradley Nadeau, first round pick. What was your take? Did you know who he was? Were you aware of him? I wasn't. I have to admit, I wasn't aware of who he was or where he would fit in.
So I don't follow the prospects at that young an age, unless it's, obviously like the Bedards of the world. So I really had no idea. It looks like this kid had he had 113 points in 54 games, league and playoff MVP. He's a champion BCHL. He's not got a lot of size, but he appears to be creative. I'm thinking, could he be another Seth Jarvis-y kind of a player for us? And if so, super happy with that pick. So it's always tough, even in a deep draft, to know where these guys are going to end up. You look at, Jesse Puljujarvi, who is undergoing double hip surgery again.
Yeah.
Who was a top pick who just never panned out. So you never know what's going to happen. And Nadeau's not even like a top 5, top 10 guy.
Yeah.
But hey, the Canes have scouted well and have made some really good picks the last few years. And I think you just have to roll with that and say, yeah, let's see what, give the kid a shot. We've seen guys, Martin St. Louis, you do not have to be a 6'4" bruiser to succeed in this league. So
yeah, he's the perfect example of size not mattering in the NHL, to be sure. And it was, I saw the tape, I saw some video and highlights, and he's got a great shot of that. There is no doubt. But what was really strange in this one was Nadeau had kind of polarizing reviews. They were completely different. You either loved his talent or you didn't. And it was on both sides of the scale. No one really knew what to think about his ability. I think the best part about this is that he is so young. I believe there's, him going to college is an opportunity. And so he's got 3 years to develop and grow and build. And you put it really well. Like in the draft, there's no guarantees that the first round guy is going to be a lock. Just like you never know where the great ones are going to come from. I'm looking at Jacob Slavin, fifth round pick. Fifth rounder. Yeah. So you know what? We'll wish him the best, but they're playing the long game. Like you said, they did their reviews, they picked them, and they'll put them on they picked them, put them on the shelf, and you let them ripen. It's like a fruit. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm excited because he's
picked.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but he's going to
No,
be in
no, no.
Maine. So I'm thinking that, the kiddo and I, and my wife, if she's up for a road trip, are going to go up and see him maybe this year in Maine. So
That's a great idea. Get your own look. You can be the storm cellar scout, and let us know exactly how that works out for sure. So we're and with no offense to the second round picks and beyond, we're gonna jump right into the frenzy. That was what happened yesterday, and the reason why is I was floored. My jaw dropped, and I didn't actually believe it was true when it happened yesterday.
There's like four things you could be talking about.
Yeah, and so we'll narrow it down for you. The best defenseman in the free agent pool, Dmitry Orlov, signs with the Hurricanes. Now, with the defense that we have, I did not expect this pick at all, even with the uncertainty of Pesce still being with us and Skjei. I just did not expect it. And it just goes to show Don is playing chess, and we're playing checkers, and we're just looking. I mean, just sit back and watch the man work. A great signing, and Orlov's going to do well for himself too, because Orlov signed only for the is it 2 or 3 years? I think it's only 2
2
years.
years. Yep.
And just in time, he'll be back when the cap bumps up again, and he'll be able to cash in again. In the meantime, we have an awesome addition to the D, and the best part about him is he's probably the most well-rounded defenseman that we have, and that will annoy Kat, but our friend from the Surge Cast. But I say well-rounded because he is as good defensively as he is offensively as well. He can put up points. He's a great passer. He's solid on D. He is like the full package, right? Slavin, who I love, really the best defensive defenseman in the league. He is. So he's better than Orlov in that, but Orlov's got him in the offensive aspects. And so a fantastic addition. That was something.
Yeah, that's a huge get. And once again, Don Waddell comes out of the blue. Orlov is listed as 6 foot and 203. He's a little bigger than that. He can put up points. He plays well defensively. He can get a little dirty. He's a physical kind of guy. He's exactly what you would want. The turn, I've seen a lot of people talking about the 7.75 for him is high, but that's because you bought him for only 2 years. So you're going to overpay for the 2-year term. That's worth it. It does two things. One, you're right. The cap is going to go up. That gives him a chance to go out and get a bigger payday. It also brings in our kid from Russia. Because he's slated to be here in 2025. So you pick that up as well. Nikishin. And I know I'm probably saying that wrong, but I'm just going to call him Alex. So when Alex gets here, Alex is same thing, like except for with more upside than Orlov. So great addition in my mind. Picking up and adding to a D-core that was already strong, and you're improving it both offensively and defensively, and you're bringing some of the grit, some of the sandpaper that the Hurricanes have been needing, that you just need in the playoffs. Like they could have used that, several times last season.
And there's no arguing now that it is, with him in the lineup, the best D in the league. Top defense in the league.
Yeah, and we're not even done on D.
Exactly.
That's the crazy part.
Exactly. Lots of other things on the go there too. Let's jump to Michael Bunting. I did not see him on our radar at all, but the
Mhm.
thing that struck me was there was a lot of discussion about getting heavier, right? They needed to add additions to the team to make us heavier. And he's not a bigger guy, but he plays heavy. And again, there's that grit that you're talking about. And he's good. They're already putting him in a top 6 spot, which makes me wonder who's dropping out in all of that. But what did you think about the Bunting signing? I think it's pretty good, actually. We learned something in the playoffs, and he might be one of the answers.
There's another one. Like, I don't think this was on anyone's radar. That's the way Don operates. I really think Don goes in the office on the first day of free agency with no real plan, and then he hears something, gets an idea, and just, hey, let me call. We always joke about he's in on everybody, which is true. Like, but he's going to make the phone call and just say, hey, this, what's going on here, right? But Michael Bunting, he's not a huge guy, right? He's 5'11", he's 196. He's about Orlov's size, who I just said is, a good size for a defenseman. Yeah. But he plays with an edge. He's a 20-goal scorer. He played on the top line in Toronto. This is a guy who can help the offense. And he's another guy who can go into the corners and muck it up and free up his line mates to put, pucks in the net. It's what you need. And, for, I think it's $4.5 million, I think, for 3 years. I think it's another signing that has a lot of potential. I don't think this one is quite the slam dunk of Orlov, only because Bunting gets himself into penalty trouble sometimes. Bunting could be Trocheck 2.0. The year that Trocheck had some real offense going, if you know what I mean. Like, he's better upside offensively than Trocheck was. He's that pest, right? He's Brad Marchand light. Like, he's not that kind of a pest. He's not, going to be that good, but he's going to play with that kind of a style. He's the kind of guy you hate when he's on the other team, but not your team, right?
Yeah.
The same thing. And he adds some sandpaper. The Hurricanes, they don't need to goon it up. We're beyond those days in hockey. However, when it comes to the playoff and you have Gudas taking cheap shots at guys, somebody's got to step up and answer those guys. And guys like Orlov and Bunting can do that. I'm not saying that, that's what they're necessarily going to do. That's not their primary role, but they're capable. They're willing. You know what I mean? They're an Eric Cole. I'm not the biggest guy on the ice, but I will throw you into the board. They don't have a problem with that, and I love it. So the potential of the ceiling is high, right? We don't know what the floor could look like with Bunting, but I think the ceiling is quite.
Well, for me, Brad, I guess the floor on Bunting is losing his mind and taking just ridiculous penalties that get him suspended. And of course, that hurt the Leafs in a big way in the playoffs, where he did something stupid and hit to the head and deserved the suspension that he got. 100%. And he's got to learn to keep that in check. I think in the environment that he will be in Carolina, in Raleigh, with Rod running the ship and the culture that we have, I think he will get in line. You know what I mean? Pretty quick. And just
Rod's shown that he can kind of keep people's, helps keep their emotion check. And this is gonna sound terrible, maybe on one level. I don't think of Bunting as a dirty player. Like, I do think of him as a guy who kind of plays on the line. I don't generally think of him as a guy. That hit was way over the line.
Oh, way over.
Going into the playoffs next year, even if he keeps his nose clean with the Canes all season, if you're on the other side of the ice in the playoffs, you're like, oh, I remember what happened last year. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
remember, he that hit to the head on was it Cernak?
Yes, I believe that
That
was it. Yeah.
the players don't forget those things. So I'm not trying to spin that as a positive. I'm just saying that that's one of those things where he made a mistake. He should not have done it. Like hits like that should be out of the game. At the same time, other players know that he's willing to put a body on him, and not in an illegal way. I just mean like they're gonna go, oh yeah, like he went through that guy. Like I could be next. We don't want to see anybody hurt, but I don't mind guys worrying about it if it takes them off their game, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. If the opposition are keeping their eyes out for where he is and what he's up to, and whether or not he's going to lay a big hit on them or whatever, they're not thinking about doing their own job. And that's,
right.
That's
I
what we
don't want to see those hits. I want to be really clear. I don't want anybody getting hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm perfectly fine if the opposition is like, oh gosh, Bunting's on the ice.
Concern. Yeah, exactly. Let's go to our goaltending situation. We talked a lot about who do we thought would stay, one or the other. And one of the things that we said, well, we could have both back and that would be fantastic. But no one thought it was possible because we've got Kochetkov in the minors. And so we didn't really need the three-headed monster in net. But here we are. And I think when we signed Raanta and then Andersen, it reminded me of one of the things that I and many, many others have said. Kochetkov isn't quite ready yet. He has shown greatness and will show greatness in the future, but not yet. Not yet. Let him grow, let him develop. This is one of those things where you just want him to maybe even learn a little bit more English. That's not meant to be a slam on him or whatever. It's more of acclimatizing yourself with the league, where you are with your team, everything. I mean, it all comes together nice and slow. And then when we bring him in, we'll get a unbelievable netminder. And in the meantime, I was happy going into the playoffs thinking that Andersen and Raanta were going to bring us a cup. And I think they can. They were that good last year. They'll be that good again. They're steady and consistent, and we absolutely love this. So, and oddly enough, and I may have been mistaken, I think they even took a little bit of a cut in pay. I'm not you know what I mean? So they took the haircut that we wanted them to free up the cap space for us to be able to go after other players that we may need. What's your take? Are you happy with the three-headed monster?
I am. I need to first say I went on record and said there is 0% chance they sign them both. And my joke was I have 2 million reasons why. Right. Mm-hmm. So Pyotr Kochetkov is now your second highest paid goaltender, even though he may be third string. So Raanta took a ridiculously team-friendly deal. So I wonder if Ranta's thinking long-term. I wonder if Raanta might be our next goalie coach kind of a deal. You know what I mean? But both he and Andersen, you're right, took haircuts on their deals. So we got them both actually, Ray, for less than we paid Andersen last year.
Isn't that something?
And they're a year older, but they also, in my mind, are better. You know what I mean? Andersen has shown he can play in the playoffs. Raanta has shown consistently he is a top backup goaltender. He is a starter on most teams in the league. The one thing I would say about having that duo back is going to be Pyotr Kochetkov should be in the lineup whenever possible, when it makes sense. And I would like to see Pyotr in the lineup on the back half of the season, if not regularly, then at least in some kind of consistent. I mean, he needs to be facing shots, whether that's at the NHL or AHL level. But I think his development will be well served by getting him in against NHL competition. I mean, he's the next guy. I mean, so
he absolutely is.
I'm kind of shocked. I think once Raanta was signed, I think everybody was like, well, that's it for Andersen. And I was lucky in that I was with family all day and I didn't know anything went down until it was all done. I didn't find out about anything until 6 o'clock. So
it
kudos
was like
to me.
20 minutes. Yeah, it was like very quickly after that announcement on Raanta that Andersen went on. Like it was crazy. I was like, wow, we got Andersen too. And I was elated. And I know that it means perhaps a little difficulty and stuff. And again, Kochetkov making more than Raanta is interesting, right? So you bring up a really good point. But we're in great shape in net, and especially with the defense that we have. I mean, let's face it, it makes sense that they would take a haircut to stay with the defense in front of them that is that good. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Moving on, other signings yesterday and a little bit earlier as well. Because
let's do these guys as a pair. They're line mates.
Yeah, yeah, they are, and so happy to have them both back, Staal and Fast. And now everyone tried to scare the Hurricane fans, all the Caniacs and jerks out there, when I had heard that there's a slight snag signing Staal. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, it didn't materialize. We had him on. I think it was maybe for the contract just a touch more than I would have liked, but in the end, it doesn't matter. It didn't prevent anyone from receiving, or didn't prevent Waddell from getting the players that he wanted to get later on. And Fast, that quickie, isn't that great having him back as well? He is an underappreciated, under the radar type player that you miss when he's gone, and he is just that great. Ask the New York Rangers. They'll tell you how much they would love to have had Fast back.
Yeah, $4.8 million for Fast, I think, is a steal on a 2-year deal. I think that's a team-friendly deal. Jordan Staal's is also a team-friendly deal. You get both of those guys. So much like Andersen and Raanta, you get for less than the price of Andersen. You just got Staal and Fast for less than the price of Staal.
I know
and Staal's contract is shaped so that so it's a 4-year deal. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to play 4 years, but it's structured in such a way that those last 2 years there's a fall off. His last year is insignificant kind of money. So if he retires, you're out. I mean, there's no penalty because he's not 35 yet. There's no 35-year-old penalty for newer listeners, newer hockey folks. If you sign a player 35 years older to a contract and they were to retire, for example, you're still penalized. And that's to keep you from giving a 35, 36-year-old person like a 10-year contract to lower the AAV, that kind of thing. So there's rules around that, but Staal's not 35. So to get Andersen and Raanta for less than Andersen, you get Fast and Staal back for less than Staal.
Yeah.
Gardner's off the books. Jake Gardner, we had Paul, our friend Paul from Scotland, asked about, what's going on with Jake Gardner. And I think Paul knew, Gardner's, I think, just gone. I think he's going to retire. I don't see him coming back. The Canes had the most available cap space going into free agency. And they, in my opinion, have used it incredibly well.
Yes.
And the really cool thing is they're still in on EK. So Carlson, who just won a Norris for the league's best defenseman, who is arguably one of the league's worst defensemen, but puts up points.
Yeah. Points.
And they're still in on him. So your decor right now has a top pairing of Slavin and Burns. In my mind, I know Pesce's the one people think is going. I don't think so. I think you're going to see Orlov and Pesce potentially together. Unless the Canes are really, if they're really in on EK, then I think you have something like, I'm not quite sure how you would go there. Orlov and Chatfield, maybe, depending on if you get rid of Pesce or Skjei or both. That's the big thing is we have a glut of defensemen right now. We have 6 defensemen under contract. They are looking at TA. They are looking at EK, Erik Karlsson.
Yep.
They have Dylan Coghlan got an offer. Like he got an offer sheet, so he doesn't have a contract, but he's been offered, which is surprising, right?
Not very.
Defense in depth. Hey, if it's basic. So I think Pesce or Skjei has to go. I don't see how one of them does it because you're not going to pay Orlov $7.75 million to play on the third line. That's not going to happen. So either Skjei or Pesce move down, probably Skjei, to play with Chatfield, which I'm okay with that.
Could you imagine?
I mean, as good as the Pesce Skjei duo has been, we've said like typically if they're both off, like it's just a horrible night to watch Canes hockey. But if they're in on EK and you bring EK in, then what do you do? And we already know that Pesce and Skjei are both in the final year of their contract.
Yep.
You're going to probably try and sign one. I got to go with Brett Pesce. I know people are divided. And it's not just personality. It's not just his dad, Brian, being, so good with the fans.
Fantastic. Yeah.
It's Pesce feels like a lifelong Hurricane at this point. I mean, he feels like the anchor. Skjei put up some incredible numbers. His value, I don't think has ever been higher.
Yeah.
I think somebody's going to want the offense that Skjei provided last year if they can pick it up. And bringing in a guy like Orlov and potentially EK, you can replace that, right? Oh. So I feel like Don Waddell looked at last year because we said, you want secondary scoring, right, from your lower wingers in your defense.
Yeah.
And we joked like, Don Waddell's just going with defensive scoring, and then if your top 6 puts the puck in the net, great. And I think Don Waddell is like, I'm going to stick to that plan. We're going to score significant goals out of the D, and then if then whatever the offense put in is gravy because that's kind of what he's building. But
isn't that something?
EK would be huge, and then I still feel like, especially if you were to package out Brady and Brett Pesce, right now, even with Orlov and Bunting, they have like $4 million, I think, in cap space. They can still go get a goal scorer. Like they can still go get a guy. If you bring EK in, somebody's going out. So there's still money to be had. I think you're going to see Don spend close to the cap because Don's always said, like, I don't want to do trade deadline deals, and I think I finally believe him. I think we're going to know in the next couple of weeks what our roster is going to probably look like for the playoffs next year. And I am really excited that this team on paper is better than last year. I was really sad to see Max go.
Yeah.
Especially to the Caps for $2 million. I thought that was a risk worth taking, but he's going to miss the start of the season. You don't know how he's going to integrate. There's a lot of question marks there. If you said, Brad, would you rather have a healthy Orlov or a potentially healthy Pacioretty? I'll take Orlov.
Yeah.
I know they don't play the same position, but I'm just kind of, he was, kind of first in, first out. So,
and that's not a slight against Pacioretty at all, by any stretch of the imagination.
I was a big Patches fan.
I was too. I even overlooked Pacioretty's history with the team that shall not be named. I overlooked that to say how much I wanted him around, right? But, that's just the way it is. We've got, and there's so much more. That was just yesterday. Orlov, Bunting, Andersen, Raanta, Fast. I mean, just yesterday. And what more is to come? There's so much more. And we could talk about this for hours. There's no question. I mean, what it all means to the lineup and the chemistry. And like I said, adding EK into that D makes me wonder where do you put everyone? Chatfield, who I think is great, with the addition of Orlov, and you throw in EK in there, he's got to be looking around and saying, there's a lot of people here. What is their plans for me? You know what I mean? And he's fantastic, and I want them to keep him. But where would he fit in the lineup? Where would he? You know what I mean? Like, where would they put Orlov if they got EK?
Right. Somebody has to put on the third line.
Yeah,
you don't. I would put EK on the third line, even though I know it'd be a big get. I would shelter him defensively and stick him out there to put up points as often as I could.
Yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy. Of course, lots to talk about. I know you and you know, I love. We're big fans of women's hockey, and you wanted to make a point, just shifting gears a little bit, slightly away from our Hurricanes. Fire it up, man.
So just real quick, we're keeping this short and sweet and to the point this episode. The PHF, who we talked about quite a bit last year when we were able to, have been bought out by the National Women's Pro Hockey Players Association. Billie Jean King Enterprises, I think, is now the owner of the league. The league is going to be contracted down to 6 teams. 3 of the storied franchises are being lost: Boston, Connecticut, and Minnesota, I think it is.
Wow.
Which is incredibly tough. I think it's a step back for women's hockey. I know PHF players are trying to, you know, wrap their heads around it. I mean, the short version for people who don't follow women's hockey is the PHF said they were going to invest substantial investment into these teams. They were handing out the first 6-figure multi-year deals, because it used to be you could only sign a 1-year deal. These were women who were going to get to play hockey full time and not have to have a second job.
Exactly.
You're not hearing stories about women who were school teachers and nurses who would, you know, there was a story last year about, you know, an overnight nurse, and she would work overnight and then get driven to the game and then play the game and then sleep on the way home, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And all those contracts have been voided. Like people who have moved, who may have bought houses or cars or things based upon. So there's a lot of that going on. We're not going to touch it all today. We are going to spend a little time this summer talking about women's hockey specifically. We're going to try and dedicate some episodes to, or at least a couple of episodes, even if they're longer, roundtable style episodes, to women's hockey and what this means for women's hockey in general. But just a shock. Just so for those of you who follow women's hockey, we want to get some people in who can help us with the situation and kind of help explain things. We have a couple of connections that I think are going to pan out to get some folks in. But that was such a tremendous shift in the hockey world that I couldn't go a whole episode without at least just mentioning. The PHF has been bought out. I know there's a lot of back and forth on both sides. People mad at PHF ownership, which I think is fair. People mad at the National Hockey, Women's Players Association players. I kind of get that, but that's not who, that they weren't the ones who did the deal. I think the big thing now is they were trying to ratify a CBA. The reports initially said that the PHF players who might play in the league would not be part of that voting process to ratify the CBA. I think that's wrong. But there's so much information. I'm not sure what is fact and what isn't. So we will come back to the story very soon. But I just wanted to bring that up quickly.
It just such a shock too. It makes you like there is a facade in front of the league itself. There was a facade out there. Everything's fine. Everything's great. A big wind blew up, knocked down the facade, and all of a sudden there's problems.
There's bankruptcy rumors and everything.
And it was just, So, it's terrible. You're right that it is a step back. I can't believe that, Boston and Connecticut both.
No New England women's hockey team in this new league.
That's unbelievable, right? So we will come back to that. And you are right. We do have some fantastic guests that have joined us in the past who will have a lot to say about this topic for sure. And that's what we're all about. We want to have a lot of people around the table to bring us to the information that we need, and who are far greater experts than you and I to talk about it. We've covered a lot. This is an abbreviated show. So we hope that you can enjoy this on your drive into work, drive home, wherever you are, give us a listen. Where can they find us, Brad?
Assuming Twitter lives through the next couple weeks, they can find us on
kidding.
Twitter,
What?
Stormseller97.
There.
They can find us on a couple of different Discords, which I'll put into our link tree. Will be available there. They can find us. If you look at Stormseller Reddit, there's a Stormseller Reddit page now for a subreddit. But our link tree is linktr.ee/Stormseller97, and that has links to anywhere you could find us. So
fantastic. Glad to be back. Glad to get this one out there. We hope everyone's enjoying their summer. Keep your eyes on the news wire for more craziness from Carolina. Don Waddell, thank you. You made my Canada Day pretty darn fantastic. I'm not going to lie. And the
Red Sox put the spanking on the Toronto, didn't they?
On the Blue Jays, yes,
on
they did.
Canada Day. Hey Ray, I watched that game.
Did you?
I did.
You gotta be like that, man. That's okay. I'll take a few lumps. That covers everything. But there is one thing we need to say.
Welcome to Dmitry Orlov. Oh, I mean, go Canes.
And go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormseller97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormseller97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormseller97.